feel like we normally roll off of something and don't just start.
Yeah, I know.
Blank.
I
weird.
think. Yeah, I mean, do you want to maybe start with the prayer? Given today's subject matter.
Okay, I'm just, we got this. Ready? Whew.
Yeah. Loosey-goosey.
Hi, you're listening to Second School, a podcast by two cult survivors who are slowly learning to be functioning members of society. I'm Ben Ford.
And I'm Jake. You didn't read what I sent you, Ben.
No, you sent I'm dumb and I'm outworldly. And I was clever enough to realize that's not what I should say.
Damn it. I thought you might just okay, I'll just pull this up and read this real quick and Ron Burgundy
Isn't that what you did last week?
Would happen. Yeah, I just read I'm Ben Ford. And so I was like, oh, maybe I can get him.
No, you gotta try harder than that, Jake.
You are not, in fact, dumb. You are not what I said in the intro that I wrote out.
It's been proven once and for all.
That's right.
You're not feeling too good today, Jake. Is that right?
Well, my allergies are terrible. Just seasonal allergies. So there's pollen in the air and love in the air, frankly, and I'm allergic. So I'm sneezing a little bit. My daily cocktail of drugs hasn't kicked in yet, so I am still struggling. But yes, I'll soldier on, Ben, because we're talking about some really important stuff today.
Are we really?
Probably the most profound conversation the two white gentlemen have ever had on a podcast.
I think that's a fact of life. Scientific.
Yeah, these are the facts of life.
That's
what was in that theme song.
About... Well, to be fair, I don't even remember what we said. Is it religion, or is it God, or is it all of the above?
That's the question, Ben. Religion, spirituality, God, the cosmos, the stars, the spirit, the Lord and Christ.
Wow, I feel like this is like the beginning of the intro from Transformers. You know when Optimus Prime just starts talking in his deep voice, like, the cosmos, the war in Cybertron.
Space, robots, God.
We've begun the nerd references early. So, God. Should we begin with the nice easy one?
Yeah, let's just start easy. God. What's his deal?
Yeah.
Does he exist? Is God dead?
Now, maybe before we get into what and in case it wasn't clear from our ramblings, what we're talking about is like our new viewpoint on religion, because that's obviously or potentially different from our previous shared viewpoint as Jehovah's Witnesses.
That's right. Oh my God. And look how seamlessly you mentioned the fact that we used to be Jehovah's Witnesses at the start of the show instead of the end, right as we're about to finish.
We'll get there. By episode 100, we'll have that nailed.
I think so too. Nailed like Jesus on the cross? Stake? What do we think? Let's start there.
Questions.
What do you think? What is your opinion? Because this is obviously we're going to have a lot of random people looking at the charts for religion and spirituality. They're going to look at the number one podcast on the charts. That's us. So they're just going to listen to this with no background to the show. But we used to be Jehovah's Witnesses. Witnesses believe that Jesus died on a stick. A torture stick.
Sometimes
I just wanted to let that hang there and just see how long Ben would let it hang there.
At the beginning of the episode, I always just you say something like that, and I just like to let it hang there and try and teach you. You know, like when Sheldon gets sprayed with water when he sprays people with water when they do something bad in Big Bang Theory.
No, I don't know that because I have good taste and I would never watch the Big Bang Theory.
Big Bang Theory is great. Anyway.
No, nobody thinks that.
He tries to teach people to stop doing annoying habits by just bringing around a water bottle, and he just sprays them whenever they do something annoying.
Yeah, like you do
trying to do that. Yeah, exactly. And I'm trying to do that with you. So like when you make a really horrific statement, I'll just let it hang and kind of teach you subliminally.
Yeah,
hang like Christ. Doing this.
I can't take credit for that. Christina said that off mic. I stole her joke because it was good.
Now, okay, let's do the Jesus thing.
I
But
think that's
before
a
we
fun entryway, because like we had an established thing that we were taught, and whether or not you are a Christian, I'll bet you've done a bit of research into like Watchtower's use of the Greek word stauros and that kind of thing. So like, do you have like a take on whether or not Watchtower is wrong about it being a torture stake?
No. I don't really. It's the kind of thing that's. These are the kind of witness questions that are so unimportant if you don't consider the big questions first. Like, it's for me, it's like,
Well,
well,
that's
what do you
true, yeah.
think? Like, if someone's like, well, now, now you're not a witness. Do you think he was on a stake? Do you think he was? And I'm like, but it's like saying, well, you don't ride a bike anymore, but like, would you ride with a helmet or without a helmet? And it's like, well, I think the key statement here is I don't ride the bike anymore, so I just don't care.
Fair
Does that make
point.
sense?
I guess so, but I think that they're within the context of like translating Greek texts, you can do it correctly or incorrectly. I just thought you cared about stuff, Ben. I don't know. I just thought you cared about being right and whether or not things are right and truth and justice in the American way. Call back to our first episode.
You know me. Ben from England loves the American way.
He loves the American way.
No, I don't. I really, as in, I really don't care about these.
You
I
don't care
think
about
because
those little details and stuff. See, I found that super
No.
interesting. Like when I was going down like the JW facts rabbit hole and I was reading the entry on like the torture stake thing, I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. It's so interesting. And even if I don't necessarily care that much, I still find it interesting, and I find it useful to know so that I can throw a mistranslation in people's faces. You have to have these petty facts at the ready, Ben. Petty at the ready.
If it rhymes, Jake. If it rhymes, it's got to.
Well, once it rhymes, you have to accept it as absolute truth.
I thought you were going to make that statement rhyme, and I was going to be really impressed. But
Damn it, that would have made sense.
No, I'm much more. The little things didn't bother me too much when waking up, because you can always reason, like, people get stuff wrong and it will change, and it needs to be impactful for me to care enough to have not only an opinion on it, but also feel like talk about it with conviction, if that makes sense. When we're talking about these, I'm gonna, maybe it's not minor for some people, but to me, minor issues is kind of like, I'm neither here nor there. I don't. If Jesus, if there was a literal Son of God, right, and he came down to earth, and he is, roaming around, whether he died on a cross or whether he died on a stake is of little to no importance to me, because I first need to think, well, do I believe that this Son of God came down? Yes or no? And that question is going to have so much more impact to me, because if I say no and he did, that's probably going to be problematic. And if I say yes, then there's probably a myriad of other questions I want to ask before this minor thing. I don't think he's overly concerned about how he died. I know witnesses say that's really important, like, idol worship and, getting this stuff wrong is bad, and false religion and stuff. But also, is it like, if there is a God, and is he going to be overly concerned about you doing everything 100% correctly? Or is it the fact that you've realized that there is a God and you've even found the right one? Is that not enough? So it's just, there's a bazillion other questions for me before we start getting down to, well, what about this? Witnesses say this and other people say that. It's like, well, I don't think witnesses are right. And so any argument that's like, well, the witnesses say this, how do you respond? It's like, well, that's just a mute argument now for me. Not generally, but what I'm saying, like, personally, I just don't care. Does that make sense?
No, it does make sense. I just thought it might be a fun little entryway to
I
talking
like
about
to
why
kill fun.
witnesses are wrong about a thing. But, you wanted to kill fun like the Romans killed Jesus Christ our Lord on the torture stake.
Like the Grinch I used to
No,
be.
I'm just kidding. No, I don't.
What do you think? Because I feel like you obviously have.
Oh, well, yeah, no, I think we actually agree on that. On the fact of, like, well, surely God wouldn't actually care about that kind of little tiny detail so much. Like, why are we making God into the kind of, like, petty, detail-oriented, like, persnickety, like, human? Like, making God very, like, small and human and concerned with getting every little thing right.
Exactly.
So I don't think it actually matters, but I think it was a cross.
You're right. When you're saying it like that, it kind of makes me think, like who benefits from God being really petty and requiring a very specific, defined form of worship, and it's the people who are enforcing that worship on earth, right? So
Yeah,
it
exactly.
like if God is all loving and doesn't care like who you love, who you sleep with, what you're smoking, how you pray, all of this stuff, witnesses break down. Like that, the whole structure just doesn't work. It would have to be. It would look completely different. It only functions even as a brainwashed Jehovah's Witness, let's say, because God requires this very specific worship that's also written in elders' books and gets trained through theocracy, and like that's the only way it works. So as soon as that's gone, that kind of God died to me, basically. So now it makes it much easier to just not care about things, because it's like actually the whole idea of caring is a witness one, to me at least.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. That's the
I feel
reason.
like I'm coming out with some takes, and I'm not sure if I'm normally this insightful.
Well, we'll let the listeners decide if that was insightful or not, but I'm glad that you're pleased with yourself, Ben.
I am. I really am. I think it's because for the first time I've gotten like 10 minutes through the podcast and I haven't like just fumbled up English sentences. And so it makes my brain go, wow, you're doing really well.
No, oh my God, no, I know exactly what you mean, though. I sometimes, because now I'll do like live streams and it's just like total stream of consciousness. And sometimes I'll get to the point where I'm like, I'll consciously think like, ooh, I'm kind of on a roll. Like I haven't messed up in a while. And then it's all over. Then I'm like, okay, well now I do mess up and now it's ruined and I don't remember the good thing that I said. And yeah, no. So I understand. I think you've been spewing straight facts, Ben. I think you've been crushing it. You've come in with a lot of self-confidence, I gotta say, because before we started recording, you're like, I'm sorry I was late, I was working on a video. It's really good. And
I do think the problem is now that we record very quick to release. So this recording will be up within a week or two.
Right.
Whereas we used to have like 6-month gaps. So
yes, true.
So I don't know if it will be up when this it will at least go up shortly after this episode, and if not before. And I am quite happy with it because I tell you why I'm happy, because this is just not important in any way, but I'm going to tell you because the intro to my YouTube channel is kind of weird, but I kind of like it. It's like I just like the jingle, really, and so it's just stayed. But I realized no one actually watches it and has any idea about who I am. And in this video that's coming out of these next two, it's very important that people know who I am, otherwise I look like a dick. So I made like just a quick 30-second snapshot of my life, and I got like this like projector look going on and all the sounds and like just black and white little clips of life and going, then I moved to Bethel, then I did this, now I'm out, it's all good, boom, done. And just making it, I think watching it is like it's almost like because it summarizes my life so quickly, it's like, in the grand scheme of things, this was kind of a blip. Like we've been fortunate enough to get out at a relatively young age, and there's like way more to go. And the fact that I can now tell all of this past in less than a minute is I don't know, it just makes me feel kind of good, about life, about the video, about our relationship, Jake. It just puts a positive thing, a spin on things that you didn't think could ever be positive.
No, that's really neat. And, I just released a video about my life that was 2 hours and 45 minutes. So I haven't gotten to that point where I can, really succinctly get it down. But no, I totally know what you mean. Like, there's something satisfying about being like, yeah, that was that part of my life, and now we're doing this different thing. You have like the comic book intro, like when you like look at the first page of Spider-Man, how it's like Peter Parker was an average high school kid, and then he got bit by a spider, and now he's Spider-Man. Anyway, now he's possessed by Dr. Octopus or something. Like, onto the story. So I guess what I'm asking is, have you switched bodies with Dr. Octopus?
Is it Dr. Octopus or is it Dr. Octavius?
Ben. His name, his real God-given Christian name, to keep us on track, is Dr. Otto Octavius.
Yeah.
And he becomes Doc Ock. He becomes Dr. Octopus once all the arms get attached to him. And that's how the Daily Bugle labels him. Yes.
Sorry, you're right. It's just I don't ever hear people
Thank
say
you for
Dr.
your apology.
Octopus,
I don't accept it.
because Dr. Octopus sounds so wildly childish, but Doc Ock is like
Doc
villain
Ock.
of Spider-Man,
Yeah.
scary, like, yeah.
And then Doc Cock is the porn parody that you and I are working on. The guy with 8 dicks coming out of his back.
You're determined to get us banned on all streaming services. One by one, they'll cotton on.
I feel quite certain I've listened to podcasts where they say cock before, so I think we're good.
Maybe, but have they talked about a seemingly young person born with 8 penises to then...
I don't see... This is you inserting a totally new dynamic, which is that it's a young person. That you have inserted that.
Well, yeah, it's because before you were talking about being born with your son already
with
you.
my, conjoined twin in my nutsack. What, you didn't think that was appropriate for the podcast?
It's any kind of filth. It all just gets bundled up together, and it just makes everything worse because I start mixing up the filth.
Once you click that explicit button, you can say anything on a podcast. It's amazing.
Do we click that? Do we click explicit?
I do.
Oh.
Because usually we curse. By we, I mean me. I'm the only person who makes dirty... Well, no, you've made some dirty jokes in the show, but it's mostly me.
Okay. I have gotten a bit worse. Yesterday, I actually was made so many dirty jokes that someone looked at me just out of shock almost. And I was like, damn, that was the 4th dirty joke in 3 minutes. I got to really turn this down.
I love to hear this, though. I hope that some of these disgusting gay jokes make it onto the podcast one day.
Well, I was at mini golf, so it's very easy when there's constant talks about holes.
There's shafts and holes,
straight
and
in,
balls
and exactly.
Anyway, none of this is making it to air. But as far as I'm concerned, shafts and balls is a great transition to Jesus. So that's what we're talking about today: is God and so forth. But we were sidetracked from a good point that you made, which was, the pettiness of religion and how it requires the whole setup of you have to follow these specific rules in order to be saved. Sorry, now you're looking at me all skeptical.
No, I was just you said, I think, if I'm correct in my very, very short-term memory, I think you said that religion requires, these kind of petty rules. And I was just going to challenge you and say, well, actually, there are religions where they're not nearly as rule-based as we were led to believe or that we experienced. And so I think
that's true.
That's probably where this kind of question, or why this episode can exist, is because, some witnesses might potentially will move to, Catholic or Buddhist, but there's also these kind of smaller religions or more, let's say, open and easygoing groups of faith, and they might be way more appealing as an ex-Jehovah's Witness because of that lack of rule system.
Yeah. I may have been building up to that, Ben, but I'm glad that you took us there, because what I was going to reference was the fact that one of the things that I read that had an impact on me during my kind of process of unpacking the life the universe and everything was I guess I don't remember what book, but it was by a guy named Richard Rohr, who I think he's actually like a Catholic, I don't know, some kind of religious scholar. I think he's Catholic, but he just kind of writes these hippy dippy books about God and stuff. And I was like, I want to read some like progressive Christian stuff and see how they're justifying all this stuff from like a more progressive humanist standpoint. And he described, he used the term like immature religion. And the way he defines immature religion is that kind of rule-based worship, bringing God down to a human level, and the sort of simple base human comfort of, I don't need to worry about death, because if I do all these little rituals just right, then that means that I'm right, and that means that I am saved, and I don't have to worry about all this stuff. It doesn't necessarily make anyone's life better, but it's a simple comfort, but it is based on the assumption that, like, if I am a part of the right club and do the right things and tick the right boxes every day, then I'm fine. As opposed to like a more nuanced approach to, I don't know, spirituality or faith. And that's how I view, I guess, most religion, is that based around that kind of thing. And beyond that, I don't really know. I guess I consider myself anti-religion now, but like you said, I know that there are groups that are more mature and healthy and do some kind of good in the world. I don't know. Where are you at with that? I see a question in the back, brother.
Yes, thank you. No, I was just good because I know some things about you, Jake, and I know that post. Oh, also that long.
Do you know
video,
about my nutsack, son?
I was just about to praise you, and you make it so difficult. I was going to suggest that people watch. I
have been described as hard to praise.
The like 6-hour video or whatever it is that you did.
Yeah,
I actually think it's a very good video.
Thanks.
That people should watch. And I don't think you talk about it in there. I don't think, but post Witness life, I don't want to say did some soul searching, but you at least attempted to experience other faiths. Is that correct?
Yeah, sort of. I think that I'm like where I'm at now is I'm very comfortable with the not being certain, like being comfortable with uncertainty and not necessarily being correct, and like being okay with the idea that I'm on a journey and that the journey is the point and that the destination we don't know and we can't know really. I did like I tried to go to a church, like a Christian church. It was an Episcopal church. I missed the like community aspect of it, and I was interested in the idea of like religion and ritual. Like I find it kind of cool, actually. I find there to be something kind of cool in I don't know, almost like in the sense when like I watch a fantasy movie or read like a fantasy book and it'll describe some like little group, like they do a weird ritual. They have to drink a special thing every day, and they pray to a big tree. I don't know. Like I always find that kind of interesting. I just wanted to pray to a big tree, basically, and I thought the Episcopal Church could provide that, and they didn't, so I stormed out. I find that kind of interesting, and like the whole notion of like sacrament is a thing that we didn't have at all as witnesses, really. Like the like partaking of like the bread and the wine, that's something that's like really important for Christians that just has absolutely no meaning for me at all, because that's for other people, that's for the special ones. But I know for some people, like that idea of communion and actually like partaking in something as a group is meaningful. It's like, I don't know, maybe that would be cool. I'll try that. And I went and I just kind of felt nothing the whole time. I was just like, I felt like I was a National Geographic reporter studying, uh, that big tree that I was talking about earlier. So I didn't really feel any connection to it.
And so what you're saying is you went in and you didn't immediately feel the love. You weren't immediately greeted and felt at home, and people invited you to dinner.
You know what? I'm glad you brought that up. So that was striking to me. It was not a cold, aloof environment. Like it was not what witnesses described. Like, oh, churches in the world are so impersonal, but only we hug and smile. Like, no, people were nice, but it was also like there was an idea like this is a solemn, like kind of. It's like walking into a library. Like you walk in and it's like, yeah, we're here to like worship and pray and stuff. So people were nice and they smiled and like shook my hand and like, oh, it's nice to have you here. Can we help you find your seat? But it was not like, oh my God, you gotta meet brother so and so. Hey, we got a visitor over here. So yeah, no, which was I appreciate it because I really am not comfortable with crowds and like I'm not comfortable meeting new people and experiencing new things and generally. So it was interesting to see an environment that was welcoming, but that was not love bombing because that was actually a bit of dissonance I had, I think, when reading about how cults work is the idea of love bombing. I'm like, that just sounds like being nice though. I don't understand the difference. And no, I think it did make me see like, oh, I see the difference of like when there's very consciously a group effort to be like, we need to show this person how loving and awesome we are so that they join our group, as opposed to just kind of genuine human kindness and empathy.
Yeah. So I think there's like two things you mentioned that I want to pick up on. You mentioned first being comfortable with the idea of not knowing, which I really like, and I am in a very similar space there. And also, now, if only I had written them down.
Story of my life. I'm sorry, I talked so much and rambled on as I was trying to find my thoughts. So
no, it's good. It's good. I'm picturing you walking into the church, and oh yes, exactly. You mentioned the sense of missing a community, and I resonated with that. That was actually something I was talking about with the family I live with. That I've just started randomly speaking to old people on buses, and I think I just miss old people because it's very difficult to like naturally form even like a relationship or let alone a friendship with older people in like real life, unless you're like volunteering for something that puts you in touch with a lot of them, or your neighbors are. It's like, how on earth are you gonna say to someone, hi, I'm not weird, I'm also not gonna stab you, I'm like a nice normal young person, and I used to hang around with like loads of old people and we got on really well, and they would give me cake and I would tell them stories and we would laugh, and I kind of want that again, so do you want to be my friend? It's not something that happens. It's like church is like probably the easiest way to regain that part of life, and it's just a weird thing.
Well, I think that's you hit on it. Is like it is like an easy like, oh, here's a building with a community in it and you can just join, and there's your little tribe. But like the reality is I had that same thing of the not necessarily old people thing, just because I work with a lot of old people and like so I do talk with old people every day and get that sick desire out of my system to form close friendships with the decrepit. No, I just leaning into hating old people for absolutely no reason. So I do totally get that. I think for me it was like I didn't really have a solid like friend group at that point, probably like IRL friends. And
in real life, for the non-nerds.
Thank you. I appreciate that clarification. I think I was just like, well, maybe sorry, I'm just working through all this in real time. I'll edit out all of the awkward pausing, or at least some of it.
I think it's my turn to edit, my friend. So
sorry, on with that. Have fun editing out me talking about balls every 2 seconds, apparently, in a tree that I worship.
I'm glad I said yes to this. No,
But yeah,
but it makes sense what you're saying, because you're in an environment where you just naturally meet, let's say, older people, and I am in an environment that I naturally meet younger people, like at university, constantly. And
right.
so that was quite easy because, people come to university, they're looking to make friends. There's all these kind of social groups going on and things to get invited to. But the older end of the spectrum was severely lacking, and still is, really, if I'm being honest. And it sounds like you almost had the opposite problem of like, well, they're like, I'm at work, I've got workmates, and like I'm surrounded by older people, but how on earth am I going to meet people my age or like younger people?
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I think that to like keep things on the topic of like religion and stuff, I was really more interested in the sense of, can I still like connect with this? Like, is there like a way to, I don't know. I was just interested in the idea of like worship and like what that means, and
Apart from the community, you mean?
Apart from the community or with the community, like I don't know. I just was kind of interested in it from a like intellectual perspective, but also, of course, just like personal fulfillment. And because I was really enjoying during my like waking up process, and ever since, like I read the Bible way more once I started questioning my religion than I did when I was a believer. Like I feel like I didn't have a need to really read the Bible in any kind of critical way, because you're given the exact lens to look through. They're like, here, you read this book with this set of glasses, and we'll tell you what everything means. And that's very boring. It's kind of nice to feel like you know what everything means. But then when you like kind of make a vow to yourself to be like, I am now going to read this with the assumption that I know absolutely nothing. I found that really exciting, and like even just examining it, like, and being able to read what actual historians say about it, and learning about the imperfections of the Bible, and like the things that don't make sense, or like it's okay to admit that this is kind of fucked up. It made it more interesting to me to read, and I didn't believe that it was the literal word of God. What's the like infallible? I didn't feel like it was that, but I felt like I was kind of getting something out of it, and it made me feel spiritual, but not religious. I guess that was a long way of saying that's kind of where I'm at now.
You feel spiritual but not religious.
Yeah. Quick pause for me to blow my nose.
You muted the mic. I could have kept that in otherwise.
Very, very consciously muted the mic. Don't want any of your editing shenanigans, making a big theme song out of me blowing my nose, and welcome to Jake blowing his nose.
That's an interesting stance to have, though. Spiritual but not religious. I
don't know what it means, but that feels about right.
There's not a lot, but there is a few things that witnesses talk about, even as pimmy physically and mentally and believing Jehovah's Witnesses, that are just straight up true. And I feel like one of them is like, well, if you leave the witnesses, it's how can you go anywhere else? Because like it's very easy to see the holes in other religions. And in a classic fashion, I was in that boat. So I left and thought about, that. Well, I very briefly thought about that kind of thing, because as I'm waking up in Bethel, so I'm still in Bethel when I kind of realize, what's going on. I thought, how do I fill this gap? Because witnesses make it, they give you a lot of pressure. That you're like, well, if you're not here, where are you going? What's going on? And then the next question or the next thing is, well, you can't go anywhere else because there's problems with everything. So it's like just a circle that brings you back to witnesses. But I'd already I'm very analytical in it, so I'd already ruled out the witnesses. And so then I went round the circle in a sense and kind of thought, well, what do I believe? Where does this go? And then saw all of the holes in the easy options, let's say. And so kind of because of that went, well, that's that. And then thought, actually, how important is this question to my life? Because witnesses obviously make that the number one importance. Like if you're not serving the true God, you're going to die one way or the other. And I actually thought, I don't think this is my number one priority. Like I am sat in a foreign country in what I now consider to be a cult compound. My family will, in the immediate future, stop talking to me. I don't have any qualifications. I don't have savings. I don't have wage to build savings. I have nothing. So my number one priority in any spreadsheet should be to like get some kind of safety net, like financially and socially and all of this. Once I'm in a place where I'm very happy and comfortable, this question, sure, we can circle back to. But until then, there's no immediate need for me to be overly worried about this. And because I took that stance and have since become I'm probably there where I'm quite comfortable, or at least I'm getting there. Because of this kind of time I've had now, like 9 months of not having religion, the question has become even less important to me. Like, actually, I really don't care about this. I do see the problem still with everyone, particularly, obviously, the witnesses. But I also have seen, like, that I'm not this crazy different person without religion. It wasn't nearly as... It obviously changed me, and I'm a different person now, but not in the giant sense that I thought I would be. Like, there's way more of me in me than I had realized, if that makes sense. And so
I love
not
that.
having religion didn't make me, die under a bridge, intoxicated.
It wasn't the thing.
drugged up.
It wasn't the thing that made you good. It wasn't the thing that made
Exactly.
you like decent. It was, if anything, I think that what you learn is a lot of those qualities that you learn as witnesses are things we have to root out. Kind of like gut judging everything and weighing everything in terms of like black and white thinking, and even just like being gossipy, and I don't know. But it really struck me. We've talked about this, and you've talked about this in your videos and stuff. But man, it really struck me. What a horrifying situation you were in. You were in a cult compound in a foreign country with no money or resources. That's very scary.
Yeah. I'm probably saying it more eloquently now because I've literally come like from an hour ago editing the video. So it's very
Right, you've
got
like
all the sentences down.
Yeah, no, but that's also really important too, is like you were in a position where you're like, well, okay, the actual thing that's really important is me not dying under a bridge because I don't have a money or a home.
Or Mario video games.
Yeah, I don't have a Nintendo. Yeah, so but that's really, really interesting to me. And it now is striking me how witnesses and other like very controlling religions try and keep people in a position where they need the church for survival. Like, they need the community because if they've joined, they've ostracized whatever their traditional family and tribe might have been before that. So now they need the community. Maybe they're very poor, so they rely upon the community for food and, get-togethers and maybe even shelter, employment. And so then leaving becomes not just, oh, what about God and the kingdom? It becomes like, I will lose my job. I won't be able to rely on, sister so-and-so, cooking or anything. Like, that is kind of striking. Like, you had more important things to worry about. Like, there are more important things. Your actual literal aliveness now is a little bit more important than like these esoteric questions.
Yeah, and I think that's something I would probably promote for anyone who's waking up or in thinking about leaving Jehovah's Witnesses, is like these kind of questions that we're like talking about now about religion and faith. Maybe they seem large and like you need to have that resolved before moving forward. But I would argue, even if you're not in the situation that I was, it's maybe unlikely. You probably do have other priorities that should be um, taking. Is it precedent? Is that right? President
Yeah,
Obama.
precedent. Precedent Biden.
Yeah, because like. Yeah, I don't know how to explain it, but like, yeah, it just felt at the time like a much bigger issue for me. Like, how am I gonna? My identity is intrinsically linked to this question, and I slowly realized that it's really not. And I, out of everyone, you would expect a Bethelite in a foreign country to more than perhaps your average witness to be intrinsically linked to the religion and their personality. So if I have experienced that actually that's really not the case, then I feel like for most people this question can be resolved later. And yeah. Anyway, there was this thing you said that I wanted to pick up on as well, where you said that people don't want to leave the religion because of these consequences and things. And that's really interesting. Like, even when people are older and they're in one of these groups that is really chill and good, and you there's no compulsion. It's not a cult. It's just a nice, positive thing for the future. Often you hear these people say, well, I'm not like, don't believe in all of it, but I really like the group, or I really like the community, so I keep going. And I hadn't really thought about it until you just said that, but that really is not an alarm bell, but it's a real in the fact that they think if they are no longer part of this group, then their friends in the group will somehow drift away, or they'll be left behind, or that they need to keep going because of these friends. Kind of highlights the link between community and religion that I think puts you and I perhaps off.
That's it's been interesting. Since I posted that life story video that I did, I've actually had some coworkers who I didn't know particularly well come up to me and be like, I really appreciated you posting that. I left my church a couple of years ago, and it wasn't anything like your religion, but it was still such a huge deal. It was like a death. It was like losing community. And that's really striking me. Like, I've had like 3 separate people come up to me and kind of say the same thing. Like, oh man, yeah, when I left the church, it was like a huge deal. I didn't realize it would be such a big deal. And so as much as we do have a unique perspective, it really is not that different. Like, it's like on a different part of the scale of the same thing. But like that link to identity is the thing that I found to be less important than I thought it would be. Like, I think, like, you realizing, like, oh, like there's more of me and my own individuality, than I thought. Like, I'm not all this. I was not, generated in like a cult laboratory. I actually have a personality and perspective and stuff. And I think that was one of the big things that I realized about myself, is like, I kind of just want to be me as I am now, just without this. Just like, this is kind of the thing making me sad. I like everything else about my life. And there are things that I want to do that I can't because of this group. But I didn't have... Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
And would you say that was easy?
That part of it was easy. That part of it, I wasn't thinking like, I don't know who I am if I'm not a witness. I think I was realizing, like, I've always butted up against this part of it. Like, I think I've always been that person. People are like, oh, I wouldn't have thought that you're a witness because you act normal. That sounds like a brag, but it's not really. I was just a bad witness who never witnessed at work or anything because I was embarrassed. But yeah, that to me felt like, oh, okay, I kind of am starting to feel a little bit comfortable with the idea of just not having this be a part of my life anymore. For me, it was the family thing. If I'm not part of this family, then I don't know who I am, and I don't know what I have left. But that's for another show.
Yeah.
I'm interested,
Okay,
and I hate to cut you off. I'm interested
go on.
in continuing my sentence, which is that. So, are you at a point now? Would you say that your answer to like, does God exist? You're just kind of like, I don't really care. It doesn't really matter.
Yes. I can't remember what I was doing, but some crazy form. It was probably illegal. On the form asked for religion, and it was compulsory, and I was like, ugh. And so then I was like, oh, what do I pick? So I went with atheist, and that's generally what I put down because I think if push comes to shove, that's what I would pick. But it feels so extremely. Actually, I think we maybe brushed this topic last week. It feels a little bit cocky to say atheist because it's like, well, I believe that there is no God, full stop. And that's if you know anything about me, I only like to really comment my opinion and thoughts on things that I feel like I know what I'm talking about. And I'm like that with decision making, and like I really like to know I'm a bit of I take a while to do it, but once it's done, it's done. And so because I haven't got to the point where it's done, and it also feels impossible to get to that point where you can say no, 100% there is, because even if like there's no evidence for God, everything can be disproved. There is still a chance that there's something out there that has never interacted with humans. Humans came up with this idea by themselves, but it just so happens that there is one as well. And so because of that, I feel way more comfortable saying like agnostic atheist. Like I'm not really sure, and therefore I am an atheist. Like because I really don't think so. I'm kind of by default in this group, but I wouldn't say I'm an atheist. Like I wouldn't support atheism, if that makes sense. Like I'm not telling people to believe. I don't know. I feel like I'm rambling a little bit.
No. I mean, I think part of the reason why I wanted to do this is because neither of us have really had a long conversation about this, not just with each other, but like at all, maybe. Like, because, like I internalize all this stuff, but I never really articulate it. So, yeah, it's interesting, and that does make total sense. Like intuitively, I know what you're saying because that's where I landed. Like when I was waking up, I was like, okay, so I guess I don't believe in God then. And I watched a lot of atheist content and like read like Richard Dawkins books and stuff, and was like, okay. And the thing where I kept on landing was like, I feel like I agree with everything that's being said up until the no God part. Like I just like the deconstructions of like Christianity and like Bible plot holes and issues with religion and all that stuff. Like all of that makes total sense to me, and I agree. But I also feel like there is a certain like moreness to the universe. I feel like there's, I don't know, maybe like a connectedness or just something else. But what I guess I realize is that I always felt like some kind of spiritual connection a little bit. But the vision of God that I had in my head, I started to realize that it just didn't line up with what I was being taught God was in the Kingdom Hall. Like I was not experiencing a God who was like petty and vindictive and was obsessed with his own name and his reputation above everything else, and who really cared who people sleep with. And like I knew that gay Christians existed, and they seemed to know their shit more than I did. So I was butting up against that part of it, but the thing that I have the hardest problem with, that I just can't really accept, and like I said, I'm on a journey, so this is all subject to change, I guess, but like the problem of suffering and an interventionalist God, I can't really reconcile it. I can't really reconcile the notion that an all-powerful God who could do something wouldn't, or can't, or shouldn't, or expects us to do it all ourselves. I don't know. So I think I have a perception of like, I just call it God because it makes sense, and that's what I've said my whole life. But I think I guess I've said it kind of jokingly, but kind of seriously, that I kind of believe in the Force a little bit. Like, I don't think you can like lift an airplane out of a swamp, but I think you in the sense of like kind of a cosmic connection between people, and that you can tap into as like a certain goodness or a certain badness. I think that's kind of true. Yeah, Midnight Mass. That show, if you haven't watched Midnight Mass, you should. It's
agree.
really good. And it's just basically, 10 episodes of people having conversations like this, but they're really well-written monologues of people just being like, what is God? Is God real? It's really good. But yeah, that's kind of the issue that I have. But I see, like, I find prayer kind of useful, and maybe psychologically I'm just talking to myself in some kind of self-affirmation, but I don't think that's bad. I think the idea of, really earnestly thinking about and considering something, like praying for other people in the sense of like really, I don't know, even if it's just like putting out good vibes and like really earnestly considering the hurt that somebody's going through, and as long as that's backed up by something practical and not just like, okay, I'm going to send this out into the ether and hope shit gets better, I think that's fine. It's good.
Yeah, I think that's probably...
Do you want to still be my friend, Ben, or am I just a crazy hippy-dippy boy now?
Well, still implies that I was.
Okay. Do you want to start being my friend after this podcast, maybe?
I no more, no less.
Become Jacoba's friend?
I think the only thing that you mentioned that I'm not there is I would in no way describe myself as spiritual. Like there's
Agreed.
when people I've met people who say that or actively describe themselves as spiritual.
Spock is more spiritual than you.
Yeah. It's never done it. I think it could well be a leftover witness part of my brain, but the idea of things being connected and something going on like unseen and for lack of a better phrase, the kind of mumbo jumbo of it all it's not up my street. I do think, like you were touching on, that like actually that's something I thought about a lot when I was leaving. Like if this isn't real, like what have I been doing every time I prayed? Because it definitely sometimes felt better afterwards. And like the idea of just like taking a moment to reflect, or like some people would say meditate, or just be with your thoughts for a moment, I think that's definitely gonna be beneficial at points. And the connection between feeling like you should do good, or thinking about a certain group of people, and then potentially subliminally doing more good for that group is also connected. So I think there is a lot of like logical, scientific, one might say, connections between the spiritual things that people talk about. But I don't subscribe to to it being anything more than logical connections or coincidences. Like one person I met early on was telling me, about all this stuff they've seen and things going crazy and bangs and noises and like they see like certain people speak to them and all this kind of thing.
Oh
And
boy, yeah.
especially when you're fresh out, I was like, oh my goodness, you're like full on demon worshiper. But nowadays, I just kind of think like, okay, you probably take a lot of drugs, all of the drugs. No, I don't know. I shouldn't be so mean about it, but it's just because I've never experienced anything like that. And I lie. One time, I don't know if this is the right time to tell this story, but I'll shorten it just in case. But I was way before, well, not way, a couple of years before Bethel. The elders gave me a piece of paper with a requested Bible study, because you can request them online and they would dish them out to like, people. And I was the only pioneer, so I'd always get them. And anyway, I texted the guy. We wanted to meet in town in a coffee shop. I wanted to take an elder because I was like getting fed up that the elders didn't go on ministry. So I was trying to like pull them and make them go on ministry. So I arranged to go with an elder. And then all the way to the the meeting point, just weird stuff kept happening. And it started with, I just started getting random texts with pictures of the governing body on fire. And I was like, I have never got like weird apostate stuff before. I know, right? I was like, what the flip? This is crazy.
You got my text finally.
I mean, that's another reason why I don't think that any of that junk actually helps people at all, because it was pushing me further in. But anyway, that happened. Then my car just was like being really weird all the way to pick up the elder. Like it was just doing all this stuff and wouldn't start. And I was like, this is weird. This doesn't happen. Then I picked up the elder, and as I picked him up, there was like this constant banging all over the car. It sounded like knocks. And I was like looking at him like, you hear this? It sounds like, he's like, have you got someone trapped in the boot of your car? Or like, what is this noise? I'm like, I don't know. It's never happened. And I was like, I'm getting really weird vibes. Then there was traffic everywhere. So we were going to be extremely late. So then on Siri, I had Siri in my car, which was at the time like magical and crazy. And I was like, it was a really crap car. I'd custom put it in just for, I don't think that I'm secretly wealthy. Anyway, so then I'm like, hey Siri, text blah 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 and say we're going to be late. And then the elder was like, oh my goodness, stop. And then he had just been told that day about like some apostate in the area who was like being nuts and trying to, whatever the apostates do. And he was the only elder in the congregation he'd been told like an hour before their name. And like, it was just this mass coincidence. And I was like, oh my goodness, this is like a real, like, it almost felt like angelic, like all of these kind of like.
Oh, you're saying that the person you were going to meet was an apostate.
Exactly.
I see. Okay.
Like, obviously, in the grand scheme of things, receiving apostate stuff on the day was a big giveaway. But the weird stuff with my car and the banging, it's attributed to kind of like an angelic kind of, no, don't go.
Oh, I see.
And it just, literally the moment that we said we weren't going to go, all of that weird stuff just stopped happening and never happened again. And it was,
what a story to tell you.
So it's really boring, but basically it was the only time in my life that something weird happened. And I am quite happy to put it down to, the car was just weird on that day. But it felt somehow weird. And I could quite easily, probably, in a different frame of mind, believe that it was like, some spiritual thing. And so I get that people have these spiritual moments and things they believe in and people talking to them. I can kind of see it, but I do just put it down to coincidence. Like that day when my car was just my car being weird. Even though someone else may have, like I did at the time, felt like it was some kind of spiritual moment. So all of this to say, it was a long way of saying that I'm not spiritual, and I kind of respect what people say in that sense. And I'm kind of like, yes, you do you. I get it. I see why you're happy about that, but I do not believe it. I'm not subscribing to it. It's more just coincidence and connections for me.
Yeah, I don't think I ever really had any experiences like that, actually. And like, I don't think I ever had an experience that was like, whoa, there's only one explanation for this, and it's God, which is so, I don't know, it's so funny, like, to like look back and be like, why did I ever think that was true? I never experienced this even one time. I guess you're just always hearing stuff like that happen. You're always like hearing other people say these things, and so I guess you're looking for these little coincidences in your life to be like, that was God.
I needed money, and money appeared in my account at the exact moment.
I know I never got that one. I hated those experiences because I was like, what the fuck? We're doing everything right. Why aren't we getting mysterious envelopes of cash on our
You didn't get the
doorstep?
baskets of food when you needed them?
We didn't get the baskets of food. We didn't get we found somebody's wallet that had money in it, and we returned it because we were good
And they weren't a
Christians.
millionaire and gave
And
you
they
£1 million
were-
pounds?
Exactly. They're like, because you returned my wallet, me, Joseph T. Moneybags, I am now giving you $1 million. Yeah, we never got that. But that's because we kept everybody's wallets that we would steal.
Oh, fun.
Yeah. So anyway, I guess where I'm at now is I'm at a point where I'm like, I don't really know why I believe in something more spiritual. I don't really know why I believe in God. I just kind of do. But it's like, I don't feel the need to preach about that to people, and I don't feel the need to convert anyone to thinking maybe there's a God out there. .org. I don't like have any kind of like, it doesn't make me more prejudiced. It doesn't make me deny science in any way. And I think that's kind of my barometer of whether or not I'm, I don't know, okay with a religion, is like, is this religion forcing you to be more prejudiced and deny provable reality? And if so, probably not good. Don't do that. And so, I kind of just see inside, I'm just like, I believe in some stuff. I don't really know why. I guess I have my reasons.
What about post-life then? So we've kind of established that neither of us have a strong faith in anything. What did you say? The phrase I quite like.
Oh, spiritual but not religious.
Spiritual but not religious, exactly. And I would say none of the above. Now, in both of those camps, we're probably, I don't want to spring this on you, but at some point, Jake, I think we might die.
What if a truck like rolled through the apartment right when you said that? Just kill me.
It's all planned.
Someday you're going to die, and that day is now, and you click a button and everything explodes.
When that happens, what do you think is going to happen?
I really don't know, and you can't know. But there's a kid who wrote a book called Heaven is for Real that I hear is very compelling. No, I don't. I think that there's something more. I kind of believe in, I guess you could call it heaven. I think that there's some kind of probably like ethereal existence in some way. Like, I think that there's some kind of moreness that happens, but I don't know how we would possibly even have the language to define it, Like, it exists so far out of our reality that it's not worth thinking about to me, really, other than I really hope that there's something in it. But if there's not, I'm okay with just falling asleep. I still agree with that witness teaching that when you die, you go to sleep. But I mean, there's like a literal decomposition of your body that happens in that kind of like you go back to the dirt and that kind of thing. So like in that very like earthly sense, there's a connectedness in the like the Lion King sense of like the antelopes eat the grass and the lions eat the antelopes, and in that way the circle of life. I believe in the circle of life, and I worship at the feet of Mufasa. That's what I'm saying.
Okay. I'm getting a lot
I don't know
of
what the fuck I'm saying.
King, Avatar vibes, worshipping trees.
Yeah. I guess I really, the Na'vi, I think, have a lot of good ideas. I'm going to try and see if I can get one of those tail hookups that they got. they plug their
Tail
tails
hookup.
into stuff.
Yeah.
It's a
Okay.
nice.
So your
nice little
favorite
thing
thing
they got
about the
going.
Avatar culture is the way they have sex.
Yeah, I mostly just want to have sex with the big blue ladies. Those big blue bazoongas.
Okay. Yeah. I think I'm
I'm just an
in a
annoying,
similar-
wishy-washy person who's like, I don't know, man, there's something.
Yeah, I guess I'm the same. I agree also with the witness teaching, obviously, that there's nothing here. You're just sleeping. I say that. I don't think sleeping is the. I'm kind of like, well, I didn't know anything pre 1994. I'm not going to know anything post. Hopefully 104. I don't know.
Wow, I thought you were going to stop at 2030. I'm like, bro, you don't have a lot of time left. You got to cram in a lot of life.
Yeah, and so I think that did have an impact on me because all of this stuff, like I say, I was kind of deliberating and coming to conclusions in Bethel before reprioritizing things. And none of that had an impact on me, but this idea of death and not being, some magical paradise with my friends and the penguins, is it really impressed on me, like, what do I do with my life, and what legacy are you going to leave? Like, who lives, who dies, who tells your story kind of situation.
Fuck, yes, that's exactly what I think about all the time, Ben, is that line from Hamilton.
Yeah. And so that really...
Can I tell you what I wish I'd known when I was young and full of glory? You have no control who lives, who dies, who tells your story.
What's your favorite Hamilton song?
It really might be that last. It might be that, like, George Washington, History Has Its Eyes on You. So it's just like makes me.
But they're different songs,
weep.
aren't they?
Yeah, I love that particular refrain. I guess my favorite song from what's my favorite song from Hamilton? It changes a lot.
It's taken this long to come with an answer.
Well, it changes. Like, I really will go through phases where, like, they all really connect with me. But I mean, I don't know. The one that I think about a lot, the line that I think about a lot is that I think about. Let me tell you what I wish I'd known. I think about that little refrain. And then just going right into the Battle of Yorktown, I guess. That whole
1770, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I just so that the viewers are clear, the best song is Satisfied. However, the one I think about a lot is Wait For It, funnily enough.
Yeah,
I
Wait
hated
For
it
It.
The first time, but now it's
Really?
like my mantra. Yeah.
Yeah,
Because I didn't really like the character. Anyway.
Well, yeah, you're not supposed to. That definitely shouldn't be your mantra. Aaron Burr is wrong, and Hamilton is a little bit wrong.
Yeah, but
it makes total sense to me that you would identify with Aaron Burr just waiting for other people to do all the work so you could come in and be like, aha, it is me.
Yeah, why do you think this podcast is a transition for me to take over your YouTube channel?
This podcast will end in a duel.
I will kill your son. No, someone else kills your son. Anyway, yeah, so this death idea, well, not an idea, this fact, it did impress on me that, your life is short, blah, 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 what you're going to do. But the legacy of, like, once you're dead, that's it. There's nothing going on after. And especially, I think we could probably do an episode, maybe even the next one on this, but like, because it's the right month, but especially as a gay man, like, the kind of legacy you are leaving is probably not going to be, let's say, a genetic family. That you will naturally pass on your name and will naturally be part of the family and all of this. Like, your legacy, in a way, I felt, especially coming to terms with sexuality and all that, is very limited to your life. Like, obviously, if you have kids, like, you're gonna, live on through them, etc., etc. But what, the name, like we discussed last week, and like, I just feel like the time that you're alive now, your legacy, and like, if you don't do anything impactful with it, you're going to be that Victorian in like 4 seconds of footage in the background that no one knows existed. Do you know what I mean? Like the handful of people we know from history, because they did something impactful, whether they helped people or invented something or, you know, had an impact in the local community, whatever it is. And so it just impressed on me that, you know, death is really it. Like witnesses think it's it for a while, but no, it really is the end. And so in this time, I've got to, you know, be patient and humble and all this, but also take risks and opportunities and try and maximize the impact that I'm having, just so that, you know, when you're on your deathbed, you're not only not full of regret because you lived the life you wanted to, but also you're happy that, you know, with these, you know, probably 200 years that I live or whatever, I'm happy with the decisions and the impact that I had. Not because, you know, I've got some weird thing about being remembered because I'm so important, but just so that you can feel like if someone did look me up on the internet in 4 bazillion years, they wouldn't be like, well, this guy worked at, you know, the local Walmart and...
it'll say host of the Second School podcast, the end.
Yeah, exactly. Some say friend of our esteemed 47th president. I don't know how many presidents you have.
We're on 46, so I don't know who your
really?
friend is. Yeah. If you're saying me, I got to really do some work for 2024.
You got to start campaigning, mate. Get out there.
Yeah, I think I'm a little
Who
behind.
lives, who dies, who campaigns for you.
And that, I do believe that. I think the only way to really make an impact is to be president. And that's why I'm announcing my campaign today.
Right now, is this an exclusive
47.
live reveal?
Yeah, that's right. Live. This is live. It seems like you downloaded this, you know, from an archive of podcasts, but no, this is live, and I am announcing my 47th. Even by the way, if you've listened to this like 8 years later, I still am announcing my 2024 presidential campaign. That's always going to be what I'm going for, even if I don't run till 2030. I want to be the 47th president, and if that means eradicating the 3 presidents before me, so be it.
Well, excellent.
I want to write a sketch about a guy who's obsessed with being the 32nd president of the United States. His whole goal is to just try and tarnish the legacy of every president after. I don't know.
Fortunately, this is recorded, so I will claim royalties on your famous
shit for my future sketch show.
Yeah.